Hello, welcome to the Photography and Video Show podcast. I'm David McClelland, I'm your host, and this month we're talking to Tigz Rice, burlesque and boudoir turned empowerment photographer, about body positivity and confidence, and about making your models feel amazing before, during, and after the session.
I want them to feel just a spark. I want to leave memories with people that last longer than the photos. I want the photos to be the reminder of the experience rather than just walking away with photos. I want them to leave with such a confidence that whatever was holding them back from not being in front of the camera before is no longer an issue.
Plus, we have new gear from GoPro, Adobe is killing off creative cloud sync for files, and how Polaroid and Instax are bucking imaging industry trends with their Instance. Joining me is Digital Camera World editor James Arteas. James, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Really happy to be back, David. Thank you so much for welcoming me.
Last time you and I spoke, you had gone on safari, sort of, with a Nikon Z8 in your hand and you were snapping some potentially lethal creatures with it. That was great to chat about. What else have you been up to this summer?
Interestingly enough, I have just returned from a trip to Andalusia in southern Spain, where I've been working commercially photographing a yoga retreat, would you believe, which is a great test of skill for lots of reasons, also a great test of packing, because as anyone, yourself included, David, as anyone who's travelled with kit for a job knows, you don't want to put stuff in the hold if you can possibly help it. So it becomes an art of like, what can I get away with packing in my carry-on or my overhead baggage? And as someone who's always been a huge fan and proponent of Micro Four Thirds kit, that is really what I did this time. I was like, look, I need small but compact but capable gear that I can take. And I'm going to be working in a very intimate environment. There's some large spaces and some small space. People are going to be practicing a quiet art, and they don't want somebody with a huge DSLR clicking away. So I need something that's small, that is discreet, that's quiet, and that fits in the overhead.
Were you partaking in the yoga itself as well as capturing it?
I was indeed. I was there sort of part business, part pleasure as much as was possible. It was just a reminder, because I used to work, full-time in commercial editorial photography, and it's nice to keep those tools or my own skills sharp, and nice to remind myself of the tools of the trade and how best to use them, not just what journalists say you should do in articles on magazines and websites without any background. So it's nice to sort of put my money where my mouth is, I suppose.
Speaking of which, before we hear from our guest Tigz Rice, let's talk about some of what's new this month. The GoPro Hero 12 just dropped. Now, I'm not going to lie, I used to try and keep up with GoPro releases back in the day. I think I lost the will to live around about the Hero 5 or 6 when the differences began to diminish a bit, and it was a bit like those Now albums. Now that's what I call music albums from my childhood. That number just kept on incrementing. But the Hero 12 Black Edition really does seem to have people excited once again. So we're talking about 5.3K, 4K, HDR video. That's one of the new things there. 10-bit color. You can get up to 120 frames per second in 4K, 240 FPS in 2.7K. Silky slow-mo stuff there. Stills. Capture stills on a GoPro, anyone? Well, if you wanted to, they're up to 27 megapixels. More realistically, perhaps, still frame grabs from videos. They are at 24.7 megapixels, so still very useful. The sensor has this really interesting aspect ratio. Not the first time that GoPro's used it. I think it was in the 11 as well. It's an 8:7 aspect ratio, 1/1.9-inch sensor. Really good quality for vertical as well as horizontal video. Works in a number of different formats. Runtimes, that's another big thing here. Same battery pack as the last version, but with new power management on the inside, it means that it runs for twice as long now, which is great. Also for video professionals in particular, new GoPro log mode shooting. You can download the LUTs for that already. Audio is another really interesting area, I think. You can now connect your AirPods or your Bluetooth headset, microphone, whatever. So you can, for content creation purposes, for example, commentate, give a live voiceover that will go onto one of the audio channels, while the other track you can record ambient sound from the device itself. I think that's quite interesting. It's got timecode synchronization in case you're recording lots of GoPros at once. I know people that have done that in car, for example. One of the forums I frequent, that's something people are particularly excited about. But for the rest of us, I think the return of the 1/4-inch 20 mount on the bottom is a big win, because now you can actually mount these blooming things to the accessories which photographers and videographers already have. So At £399 for this new GoPro, James, it sounds as though GoPros maybe are starting to become interesting once again.
Yeah, here's a question for you, David, because of all of the things you've just mentioned, the one thing I was talking to my colleagues about this morning was that notable by its absence, at least by me, is that GPS has been quietly removed from this.
Oh, has it?
Now, I think the reasoning given for that was that with some sort of consumer research, GoPro had deduced that actually it's not a feature that anyone uses to a significant degree, which may or may not be entirely accurate. To me, that's always been one of the main points of an action camera, is having that sort of GPS functionality. It's certainly something I mentally expect in GoPros and Insta360s and things. Maybe I'm in the minority on that, and maybe it's one of those things that actually nobody uses, but they get very cross when they look at their old stuff and go, "Oh, it doesn't have any tagging information in it." But that's what really stuck out to me amongst all the other specs. I thought, "Oh, that feels like an interesting one to lose." And that's kind of been a part of the broader camera industry for a while, is that GPS device or GPS functionality in cameras has been slowly removed, in part because most of us carry a GPS in the form of a smartphone in our pocket. So the manufacturers ask us to pair the app with the phone, and then when we take images or video, it gets the data from the GPS in our phones. But it's an interesting move from my perspective, and one that, again, if they really have deduced that people aren't interested in this feature, that's fair enough. But I'll jolly well miss it, for one.
It's been a long time since I've used GoPros, but certainly with my smartphone, I use the GPS tagging feature an awful lot, particularly if I'm trying to find some photos. It's all well and good being able to scroll back and make a guess as to, was it April 2018 or April 2019 when I was at that thing? But actually just being able to scroll on the map and go, yes, Hamburg, that's where I was. And you can find those images far, far faster than that. And I'm sure with some of the curation that different photo services use, the ability to identify where the image was taken falls into the algorithm that it uses to create, whether it's the little video reel or whatever, the photos.
It might be something as simple as battery life implications, could be a licensing thing, such as for the longest time, photography cameras couldn't record more than 29 minutes and 59 seconds of video because it means they had to pay for the video license. It might be either of those things, or it might just be a feature that nobody used. But I'm inclined to think there's probably more of a reason than just, nobody uses it.
Actually, the battery life thing, that sounds as though there might be some legs in that, given that GoPro has made a big thing about how it's revamped its entire energy management to achieve that twice running length figure. Adobe is stopping its Creative Cloud file sync feature very shortly for most of us. So the report on Petapixel this week said Adobe announced this week that it will end support for Creative Cloud syncing next year. Now, for those of you who maybe don't use it or use Creative Cloud stuff from Adobe, but maybe have it and don't realize that you have it, it lets you keep a copy of your stuff locally on your computer while keeping it up to date in the cloud as well, so that you can access it from anywhere else. I've certainly used it in the past, and with my Creative Cloud subscription, I get 100 gigs. I think most people get something of that magnitude. I've got 43 gigs used in there. I checked just a few moments ago. I've no idea what that all is. But I find that with different cloud storage providers from Dropbox and Box and Google Drive and Creative Cloud, it very quickly gets a little bit messy and confusing when you're trying to find stuff if you're not hyper organized. Anyway, digging into the detail, it seems as though it's from the 1st of February 2024 that free and personal paid users of Creative Cloud will lose their sync. If you're in a business, enterprise user or Teams accounts and whatever, you've got until October. So just over 12 months notice from the time of recording. I've not seen anything official yet in my inbox from Adobe, but then I might have just deleted it like I do with a lot of the stuff I get, to be honest with you. But I do wonder what is actually going on here. James, do you tend to use these cloud syncing services? Have you got a 100 gig stashed away in your Creative Cloud box?
I think, like yourself, the last time I checked, there was some huge amount of stuff that was stored in cloud, and I had no idea what it was or where it had come from. I tend not to use Creative Cloud in that specific respect. There was a time when I was juggling just too many devices and I couldn't keep on top of what was going on where, and I needed to revisit an old version for some reason. It was just created problems with my own workflow. But I know that a lot of people within my circle rely on that cloud functionality. And sort of the clue is in the name. It's Creative Cloud. You do kind of expect that cloud functionality. I wonder, at the root of this, we were just talking about GoPro potentially removing a feature because of knock-on effects on something else. What's the root cause of the reason for this decision? Is it Adobe being very proactive and going, oh, well, nobody's using this, or it's not as effective, so let's remove it? Or is there something at play that's kind of kicked them in that direction a little bit?
Well, yes, I wonder. I mean, certainly Adobe would have very close access to the data, to the analytics, to know how much people are using it, how much it's costing them, and how much benefit they perceive their user base to get from it. But the thing, and this is purely me speculating, I haven't seen this referenced anywhere else here, but I know on Apple Mac platforms, and I suspect there is quite a heavy skew of Creative Cloud subscribers that are on Mac rather than Windows. But Apple has been increasingly prescriptive about how file syncing into the cloud works. Those of us who use Dropbox, for example, one of the biggest of these cloud storage syncing providers, we're going through a big change as Dropbox is trying to keep up with what Apple's calling its Apple File Provider API changes in the operating system. And some of these changes are really restrictive, potentially, and hindering functionality for those who've moved on to the betas of that. But Dropbox and other cloud storage providers, they have no choice but to comply. So I wonder if Adobe is saying, you know what, it's just going to create an awful user experience if we have to use this really restrictive way of syncing stuff to our cloud storage. So we're going to take it away, and we're going to, maybe they'll dress it up as some kind of feature or some philosophical change that they're making to their offering. But I'll put a couple of links in the show notes to why Barry Collins at Forbes says Dropbox for Mac just got a lot worse. And Apple Insider earlier this year, Dropbox won't be able to sync to external drives on Mac OS. So yeah, there are some changes, whether you're Creative Cloud syncing files or whether you're Dropbox syncing files, or by the sounds of it, any other cloud sync provider. Tigz Rice is a photographer well known and respected for her work in boudoir and burlesque. Her book, Striptease, features images and stories from 68 burlesque performers captured across a decade of her work, winning an award in 2020. Recently, though, her go-to-market and professional branding has changed. So I began by asking about the evolution of her work from burlesque and boudoir to empowerment photographer.
I mean, it all started off in the world of burlesque. I was working with these absolutely incredible superhumans that really, it was the first time that I found an industry or niche or particular group of people that felt that they were supportive of all ages and genders and sizes and body types. There was something so magical about that I was instantly drawn to it. So when I started my career as a photographer, I was photographing these incredible people. It taught me so much about bodies and body confidence and seeing them get up on stage and every different shape of human and style of human, however you want to talk about the human race, humankind. We're all up there in glitter and sparkle and diamantes and the works. It was a really great place for me to thrive as a photographer, but also as a human there as well. I learned a lot about accepting my body and the skin that I live in daily. And so after photographing the stage for a while, I started approaching some of these performers and saying, look, I would really like to photograph you. Would you be willing to step in front of my camera? So the burlesque definitely came first. And as that journey was going on, other people started coming to me saying, well, look, I'm not a burlesque performer, but I would like to be photographed in that style. Would you consider photographing me? And I'm like, of course, like if you want to be photographed the same way as these burlesque performers, let's do this. So I was taking that burlesque style and I think very loosely coming up with, I don't know that boudoir was necessarily a term that was being used around that time. I think it was sort of, I'm not saying I was the first boudoir photographer at all, just that term just wasn't really being bounced around the industry. And so I was taking that burlesque style and putting it into a non-performer, non-model context.
Right.
So a lot of lingerie, striptease, what we now know as boudoir as well, kind of sort of like on the fringes of some of that. As that then developed and more non-performers were coming to me, I then took my work on tour with a incredible hair and makeup artist and vintage pinup model, Miss Victory Violet. And her audience was a little bit more sort of pin-up clothes on. So people then started coming to me saying, I really like the way that you photograph your boudoir stuff. Could you do that for me with my clothes on? Because I'm not quite at that stage yet where I want to put those photos on the internet. Absolutely, of course. Taking all of that empowerment and body confidence and body positivity through into the pinup world. And then round about 2019, 2020, people started saying, hey, I really love what you're doing with the pinup models. Could you do that for me, but for my business?
Wow.
Because I really want that powerful, power femme, real dominant female gaze type photography in my personal branding work as well. Absolutely. And I realized that what was more important about what I was offering was less about the context of whether someone had their clothes on or off, but more about the experience that I was giving them in terms of connecting or reconnecting with their bodies, giving them that confidence so that they could thrive and feel comfortable in front of the camera, and then take that on into either their personal life or their professional life and see how that spark of confidence affected how they were going. Even still at the moment, I currently have 2 websites. I have what was the boudoir site, which is now my empowerment site, and the personal branding side, because I felt at one point they needed to be separate and maybe people didn't want their boudoir and their personal branding stuff mixed together. But at the end of the day, I'm realizing that empowerment is all encompassing. And I mean, you only have to Google my name to see the lingerie stuff right at the top of Google. So yeah, so it's been a conscious decision over the last couple of years to rebrand as an empowerment photographer and talk about the experience of being photographed as the main selling point, my unique thing that I bring to the world, rather than specifically branding myself as boudoir, burlesque, personal branding.
The experience that your clients receive when they're working with you, what is it about how you run these sessions that puts your clients at ease, that enables them to be their best selves, perhaps to explore a version of themselves with you that for whatever reason they may not feel comfortable yet or able to share elsewhere in their lives? How do you create that environment?
I think it really all comes down to having really great lines of communication. I mean, every relationship that we have, whether it be a friendship, a loved one, anyone that we work, live alongside, we have to have great communication skills to open up those channels so that people can be their best selves. And so really it's giving and making space for them to feel like they can be present in front of you through active listening, through maybe starting some of these conversations in blog posts and in your website copy, for example, or in your socials, and sharing those personal experiences so that the wall comes down when they're speaking to a human rather than an entity. Which I guess was also part of the rebrand as well, making sure that people knew that they were speaking to a real life human, and not some kind of bot or autoresponder or whatever. And a lot of the communication actually happens before the shoot. It's the emails they send, and quite often it will be, I have someone to get in touch. I've resonated with a specific blog post. So through my career, I've blogged quite extensively, and I'm very fortunate that some of my clients will share their stories. So I've got a client that's went through a pre-elective double mastectomy, for example, and had a pre-surgery shoot so that she could document her body before. I think potentially there was the option to, we haven't shot that yet, but I think there has been talk over the years of maybe a post-surgery shoot as well. I've had clients who have gone through extensive surgeries, so then spent a year, so every 3 months, documenting the progress of recovery and how they were able to do different poses depending on how their body was capable. And so having those kind of experiences and sharing them means that I get a lot of emails saying, I really resonate with the content you're putting out there and you created and such person's shoot that you've shared. It gives them an opportunity to then say, I'd love to talk to you about my experience or what I'm about to go through, what I have been through. And then being present in a call beforehand so they actually get time to spend with me and know who I am. And I make sure that I'm present through hair and makeup as well, so that I'm not just the random strange photographer that's coming in and photographing you potentially in your underwear for the first time. Because, that's a whole wall of strangeness in itself. You've contacted someone on the internet, you've never spoken before, and then suddenly you're meant to be in a room with them in your undercrafters. It's breaking down those walls and giving them as many opportunities as they can to connect. before we even get to the photographing bit.
Potentially, depending upon the shoot, there's an element of vulnerability when you're in front of a camera. That camera can become a bit of a barrier between you and your subject. What tactics do you have? What strategies do you have to help people feel at ease once those lights are flashing?
If you think about it, like the camera is always the elephant in the room. And it, like, at times it can be a real giant box of technology between you. I don't think it's as bad as it used to be because cameras are generally getting smaller so that they're a lot less intimidating. And with the development of EVF technology and sort of mirrorless cameras, a lot of people are shooting with the cameras not directly in front of their eyes.
Yeah.
So, you're actually being able to see people. But that aside as well, there's a whole lot of communication that needs to go on during a shoot as well. So, constant communication, positive reinforcement, trying to remember not to scowl at the back of the camera when the settings aren't quite what you mean them to be.
Yeah.
But, if you are in a situation where you're really having to focus on hard light, bad light, whatever it is, your settings just aren't quite working in the environment that you're in. It's having that positive dialogue and saying, it's not you. I'm playing with the camera. I need to change this setting.
Yeah.
You look fabulous. And maintaining a body positive or body neutrality, depending on who your client is and how they want to be positively reinforced, because you have to be mindful as well that not every client who's there is in a position where they're comfortable talking about their body positively or negatively, depending on potential traumas that they've got that's led to coming to that shoot. So finding a way that you can give positive feedback and praise in that position that you're in is incredible. Like, I love the line that's going down, or I love the look on your face when you just looked over at the window over there just now. Finding ways to keep that positive reinforcement going while still maintaining the fact that you have to do a job. To do that effectively takes a lot out of you, I suppose, but it's about creating the absolute best experience for them, trying to make them forget that that camera's between you.
What is your goal? What do you want your clients to feel, to walk away with after having worked with you?
I want them to feel just a spark. I want to leave memories with people that last longer than the photos. I want the photos to be the reminder of the experience rather than just walking away with photos. So if their goal for this shoot, and we may have discussed this before, is to feel more connected to their body, I want that to happen for them. Or I want them to leave with such a confidence that whatever was holding them back from not being in front of the camera before is no longer an issue. I had a client, she came to me for a virtual shoot. And one of the things we discussed beforehand was that she didn't really ever exist in photos because the act of taking up space and existing in photos was a big deal. And we did this virtual shoot during lockdown. There was something about that shoot for her that unlocked her ability to be more present in front of the camera. And from that day, she started taking selfies and showing up and existing in photos. And it's been so magical to watch that journey. I'm such a small, tiny speck in their lives. I'm literally an hour. I'm 4% of their day, let alone their entire life. I'm less than 1% of what their entire life would be. But I would just love to even just a flicker of a spark, an ember of something that they can then take that away and go, okay, let me work on this. Let me start this journey. Let me start showing up for myself. And maybe they'll come back for another shoot, and maybe they'll just selfie away for the world, but they'll exist and they'll be documented. And that's the magic. That's what we do. We help people show up for themselves, and that's all I can hope.
Do you find that people will come to you for a session and almost irrespective of the output from that session, the session itself is the empowerment, it's their moment, it's whatever they wanted to get out of engaging with you, they've got that in the session, and almost the photos may never see the light of day again?
A lot of them, actually. I'd say probably 3/4 of my clients, I've never seen the photos go live. But a lot of these are private experiences, not necessarily for anyone specific to view. It's for them to go through that process. And a lot of it is, I want to feel good in my body. I want to feel like I can show up. I have a few clients who haven't shared their photos, but have sent me pictures of their walls, and they've got like a personal wall of fame, and it's an entire wall of their bedroom, or sometimes it's a staircase. completely dedicated to their journey of self-discovery and self-connection. Every time I see one of those walls, like I'm getting a bit emotional about it now, but they mean the world to me. You know, the fact that someone has gone from never being in front of the camera, never showing up visually for themselves, and then suddenly the next thing I know, they've got an entire wall dedicated to themselves. Like, yeah. And you know, if my photos never got shared, but those stories lived on, like I'd be happy that that was my legacy.
Big thanks to Tigz, and links to her website and her work are in the show notes. James, film is dead. Long live film.
Long live film.
Long live film. Well, also says Fujifilm, the clues in the name there perhaps, which has just pumped more than $30 million into expanding the capacity of its film production facility. So, James, is Fujifilm having a 90s flashback, or do you think it's onto something here?
It's onto something, and I think most of us have been onto something without perhaps being cogent as to how on it we've been. It's the rise, or rather the continued rise, or rather the continued dominance of instant cameras, instant film, to the point where there had been close to shortages of instant film. So that's Instax film. I should imagine Polaroid has been experiencing something similar. The same way we've seen shortages of 35mm film, 120 film, in terms of old film cameras and SLRs, the same has been true of instant cameras. So instant film has been for the last few years on a quiet comeback. And it's to the point where if you look at the state of the camera industry as a whole, we've seen most sectors going down. Most sectors have been in decline.
Yeah.
The only two sectors that have been rising, vlogging cameras are on the increase, and instant cameras, instant photography, is a massive growth sector of photography, which is so backward considering how digitally oriented photography and imaging has become. That actually the simplest form of film, really, I mean, maybe it's not the simplest, but the most primitive in some respects form of film, instant photography, is the thing that is actually keeping a lot of the fires stoked in the imaging business. It's quite fascinating.
So who is this that is getting so excitable about going back to photographic roots, if you will, with film? I guess it's not professionals who want absolute and utter control over their finished images for commercial projects with clients, or maybe it is.
Back in the day when we would use Polaroid backs on Hasselblad cameras, medium format bodies to do sort of test shots and things. It used to be the old joke my photography mentor told me, to take your test shot, it costs you £1 and a new shirt, because you would take a photograph with your Polaroid, stick it under your armpit to develop. You would ruin the shirt and it would cost you £1 to process that Polaroid. But so there was at one point a genuine professional need for it. Nowadays, not really the case. I would say up until about 2 years ago, the real growth or the real market for instant cameras, instant photography was young photographers or even people who wouldn't consider themselves photographers at all. So you would see Polaroids and Instaxes at weddings, for example.
Yes.
Or at graduations, or invariably somebody in your group on a night out would have a camera to take, or you go on a picnic with friends, or you go out drinking, or whatever it might be. Someone has an instant camera. Someone who maybe doesn't own another camera at all, save the one on their smartphone, because there is something intrinsically, tangibly wonderful about a physical artifact that comes out instantly. Instax takes about 15 seconds to develop. I think a Polaroid these days is about 4 minutes, but still instant gratification, if you like. Up until a couple of years ago, I would say that's what the market was. But what Fujifilm has done in the last couple of years has released the Instax Mini Link, or the Instax Link series of printers. So there's the Instax Link Mini for mini film, Instax Link Square for square Instax film, Instax Link Wide for Instax wide film. So these are all instant printers, but they don't use paper, they don't use zinc ink, they use cartridges of Instax film. So you can take a photo on your smartphone or take a photo anywhere and print it out on a real Instax. Why would you want to do that? Well, lots of people do, because they've been selling these mini printers like hotcakes. In America, there's a lot of interest in crafting and in scrapbooking. You print something out in an instant print, stick it in a scrapbook. There's also, again, a thing of like taking it to a wedding, and you can then, somebody takes a smartphone photo, rather than trying to airdrop it or share it in a WhatsApp group, you just plug your phone in or connect it by Wi-Fi or Bluetooth to an Instax mini printer, and then everyone can print out a copy of these. So that's really been the big development to my mind in the last 2 years. We've gone from being just Instax cameras to now Instax printers. And I know for me personally, I love having a little Instax print of something I've shot even in the studio. I just think it's a cool thing. We've been on a shoot for a day. I've worked with somebody and I can give them, almost like a tear sheet of the day. Here you go, have an Instax print, stick it on your social, stick it on the fridge or whatever it might be. So to have that really feels like the next step that instant photography has taken.
So is it cool now? And the opposite to that in a way, do you get a sense that among professionals, certainly not amongst you by the sounds of it, but there's a sense of snobbery around these cameras as well that pushes against this cool factor?
It's an interesting one. So one of my friends is actually a Polaroid ambassador. And so I see him sharing his work in the same capacity that, our friends who are Canon ambassadors or Nikon ambassadors would share their work. Purely by nature, by virtue of the format of his work, it's inherently not taken as seriously, which is a great tragedy. It's a great tragedy that anyone's work isn't taken seriously. But, it feels like, wow, just because this guy's images are on a sort of a, credit card sized printout, essentially, they're not considered as real photography somehow. And, there are arguments about that in terms of how much manual control you take, how much everything else. But yeah, there is certainly a degree of snobbery amongst quote unquote real photographers about this particular medium. I think if we're looking at image fidelity, image quality, well, a lot of people spend a lot of money on Lightroom presets and, Instagram filters and plugins and things, trying to make digital files look analog and look retro. And really, all you need to do is get an Instax or a Polaroid camera and you've got that effect in camera. So it's a very, very circular, strange argument.
So in terms of the choice, so the film hopefully is not going to be so much of a problem, at least if you're in the Fujifilm ecosystem, the Instax ecosystem going forward. But how much of a choice do those interested in instant photography have in terms of cameras? What's there right now?
So what we're really looking at is the same story it's been for a while. You have Instax and Polaroid. There are other manufacturers such as Lomography, Lomo make their own instant cameras. They use Fujifilm film, so it's essentially an Instax camera made by a different company. And you do, as I say, get these hybrid instant cameras. So Canon, for example, makes instant cameras, which is a surprise to many people.
It's a surprise to me. I didn't know that.
Absolutely. They make instant cameras, and they're these digital hybrids. So they record the file. Okay. So it's using maybe a 5 megapixel sensor, which again, the photo snob go 5 megapixels. Oh, blimey. And then some of the cameras actually interpolate them up to 10 megapixels. And then the real photographers go, oh, goodness, it's interpolations involved. That's even worse. But when you're printing, the amount of DPI you need for an instant print is not very much. A 5 megapixel sensor is more than adequate. So, you get those that I might argue are not pure instant photography. So really you're looking at Instax and Polaroid. The differences between those two are, how should I say, subtle but pronounced. So they're both instant devices. So they both of them print out an instant photograph. It's the characteristics that differentiate them. So on the Instax side, and this is true of Instax Mini, Instax Wide, and Instax Square film, you get a consistent performance among all three. They're all essentially the same film stock, just in different sizes. Instax characteristics are what you would call better image quality by conventional terms. So they're sharper, the contrast is better, deeper blacks, all that sort of stuff. Slightly unsaturated or slightly desaturated look, but more consistent. Polaroid is kind of the kaleidoscopic, LSD-tinged throwback that you expect from old school vintage cameras. You get very, brilliant bursts of unpredictable color, flare, light leaks. It is by most measures a less quality image, but it has all those characteristics that, again, as I mentioned before, people spend a lot of time trying to emulate vintage film looks on modern, digital files. So if you want the kind of the look that you got from your parents' Polaroids that you found, in the trunk in the attic one day, Polaroid is the one to go for. That gives the real vintage look.
And genuinely by coincidence, really, it's only today Polaroid has announced a new manual control Polaroid camera. The Polaroid, I think it's an i2.
Yes, the Polaroid i2. So this is a real departure for Polaroid. So as mentioned before, when I said they were affordable, instant cameras have generally been very affordable, sub $100. The premium ones with some fancy features sort of go to $120, maybe £120. cameras, and they have some features that include connectivity to your smartphones. You can do things like double exposures, portrait mode, light painting, all sorts of funky stuff. But quite apart from that, this is now a manual Polaroid camera that retails for the thick end when it's $600 or £600.
Wow.
That's quite a different proposition than what we were just talking about. I think on the one hand, yes, image quality is not the be-all and end-all with instant photography because you're not shooting that format for, file fidelity. But when you're paying $600 for a camera, maybe image quality is more important. And I think Polaroid's strategy for the new camera is sort of saying perfect imperfection, or who needs perfection? It's playing on the line of like the quality isn't perfect. Again, it's an interesting strategy for a camera of that price point, but it is very much in the spirit and in the keeping. It's an old boxy Polaroid style camera.
It looks beautiful from the images on just a bit of a peek behind the curtain here. We were looking at this site early this morning just before we hit record. That page is now gone to a 404. They have delisted that page, but I had another tab open. If I were to hit refresh on this page, it would have gone. So we think this is going to be announced imminently. Certainly, there are some proper images here. There's a price point. There's a lot of description here. We expect over the next few days or so this camera to be officially announced.
Yes, absolutely. I think they might have been caught out by the Polaroid police this morning for going live a little too early.
James, thank you for chatting us through this world of instant photography. I think maybe you're right. It is time to start taking Instax and Polaroid cameras and their output more seriously than maybe we have up until now.
Agreed.
That is all for today. We'll be back next month for more of the same. A quick reminder, though, that the in-person photography and video show takes place at the NEC in Birmingham from the 16th to the 19th of March 2024, almost exactly 6 months away. And any day now, the first speakers headlining at the show will be revealed, along with the exhibitor list at photographyshow.com. If you like what we do here on the show, then please leave a review. Give us some stars. Some of you already have. Thank you. We'd love some more, though, to tickle that algorithm and help more people to find us. If there's something or someone you'd like us to cover on the show, then drop us a line on the socials on Insta/Threads at The Photography Show, on Twitter/X at UK Photo Show. Social media got very complicated this year, didn't it? James, terrific to have you on the show again this month. Where can our listeners keep up with you?
They can check us out online at www.digitalcameraworld.com, as we can see all the latest news, reviews, rumblings, and my meanderings on the camera industry. And if you're interested in the sort of thing I shoot, I am on Instagram at James Arteus, all one word. So come and say hi, leave a comment.
Rumblings and meanderings are my particular favourites on the DCW website. I look forward to reading more of those this month. Thank you all for joining us. Until next time, bye-bye.